Hey guys, I hope you're well. You are back on the Talkwoods. This is me, Nat Rich, and today I am with a very, very well-known astrologer called Pam Gregory. And I am going to be very honest. I'm going to pretend I know nothing, but I have been stalking Pam for some time. I'm into astrology. I love, love, love your monthly uploads and the way you talk about astrology. It always comes with a beautiful, positive perspective, which for me is super important. And I think there's a lot of information out there at the moment that can be very dark and future telling, and we want to shine some light. So I wanted to invite you on. So thank you and welcome to the Talkwoods.
Yeah, pleasure. Good to be with you, Nat. Thank you.
No problem. So for me, as I said, I know about astrology. I've had readings done before. You are a very busy lady. We've just been saying that you are, we'll put it up front. Even if you fall in love over the next kind of 30 minutes, 45 minutes of me with Pam, there is no way you're going to get this woman because she does not have enough time to deal with any new clients. So just warning you, if you want to ask a question, chuck it in now, but we can't do a chart on this. Not even I'm getting one. So there is a queue for good reason, you will see. And yeah, we're going to kind of jump straight into it. So it's really interesting. Me and my team from I Am Sound, we kind of named the tagline of the show astrology or woo woo. And then Pam was like, oh no, I don't want that. So we thought, you know what, it's true, because we're not here to prove astrology. We're here to talk about obviously the future as much as we can. We're here to talk about positive solutions and how astrology can be used to help us identify who we want to become as a human race. And this is something that I feel is really important. So something that bothers me, that has bothered me quite a lot since this whole COVID stuff is the amount of darkness that we are going into by choice. And what I mean by that is that even though, there's dark things out there, there's things that, need to be questioned, but it's our addictions to the drama that can propel the drama, that can perpetuate the drama, which we kind of go into and we find it hard to come away from. And we mix that with a little bit of spirituality and a little bit of magic, and then we can get lost for days down a rabbit hole. And, the rest of our life gets put to one side, and then we get overwhelmed and excitement and awkwardness. So what I wanted to kind of go across at the board here was the way that we can look at astrology as a guiding light, the way that we can use it as a kind of North Star, and how we kind of move towards that. So can you tell us first kind of just a very brief background? I know you've been in it for 40 years, but just a brief background of kind of what triggered you in that direction and why you're kind of doing what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah. After university, I'd always wanted to go to Canada, got on a plane with $100, way before the age of mobile phones, a big adventure, landed in Toronto. And in the first week, I joined a yoga class. And there was a chap there from Jamaica, big black guy from Jamaica called Asta. I still remember his name, which is so funny because Astra in Latin means star, of course. It was quite bizarre. Anyway, a couple of the other girls said he's an astrologer. So at the end, I went up to him and said, look, I know nothing, but I'd love you to do my chart. And I went to see him a week later. And it's like it's yesterday, actually. He analysed my chart and I spent 7 hours with him. And the world just cracked open. It was so vivid. It was an absolutely, pivotal moment in my life, and it revealed this whole world of meaning and dimension I'd been completely unaware of. And he went back in my past and talked about crucial dates and relationships with parents and work and partners and the whole thing. And it just blew me away. So from that point on, I haven't stopped. And although I had 35 years in the corporate world, that was always study all the way through. And I got 8 years did a diploma, then I got a master's degree in it. And I still learn every day. It's been 46 years now. I still learn every single day. And there's so much more to learn. And that's one of the many beautiful, fabulous things about astrology. So that's how I got into it. And because it's so profound, but it is such a brilliant framework for life, because it's a very practical framework, but it's a highly spiritual framework. And that's what I love. And it always gives you the bigger picture. Always, always, always. Because with astrology, you're not just looking at the now moment, you're looking at cycles. It's a little bit like economics or meteorology. You're going back to, okay, so what happened last time and the time before that and the time before that, and then, okay, so what are the themes with the archetypes that we can now make a very educated guess as to how that's going to unfold in the world.
Yeah. And it's the way that you talk about it when you do your shows, is that you're always drawing on what's happened in the past and that we're likely to see something similar again. It may not roll out exactly the same, but it's going to have a shade of what it had in the past. And that's a good indicator. And I'm studying investing at the moment. I'm doing a lot in the kind of blockchain and crypto space, and looking at charts and looking at graphs and seeing what happened in the past and looking how, probability rolls out and risk management. And it's a very, very similar thing. And there's a really famous quote, I think it's JP Morgan, that says millionaires don't use astrology, but billionaires do. And just to pause on that and just to think, it's a greater perspective. It's this forward thinking. It's not tarot cards, not that there's any disrespect with tarot cards. It's not this could happen or this may happen. It's like, this is going to happen and you're kind of going to have to fall into line with it, because this is, naturally, this is the way nature's going to go, and you can either resist that or you can flow with that. And I think what we have at the moment in our world is, and I was saying just before off air, I think, is we have this ability at the moment to be able to divulge into all sorts of different areas, different subjects, and we're all learning at a rate of knots. We're learning about science, about vaccines, about banking, about finance. We're constantly learning, and that's great, but it can also become addictive. And the problem that we do have with that is that when we dive into a subject emotionally, we go on that journey as well. And our environment around us at the moment is quite stimulated, shall we say. So we're not just going on an emotional journey. There's a physical journey with what's happening within the planets and moving around. And there's a journey economically that we're all going on, where even our best experts are guessing. So there is no certain ground for us to stand on. And I find, I must admit, when I watch your stuff every month, and I find that's kind of a ground for me to stand on, because you deliver that information in a way that makes me feel like even if the shit hits the fan, we're going to kind of be okay. It kind of has that vibe to it where I'm like, thank goodness. And I can find in that a sense of direction, not a definite point, because it's not a personal astrology reading, but on a global perspective. It kind of, some people say to me, and they think that because I study a lot of things, they're like, aren't you anxious? Somebody said to me about the world finance, aren't you anxious knowing all this stuff? I said, no, because it's allowed me to develop a plan. I have a survival plan. So I feel even more secure than I ever did. If I didn't have a plan, or I wasn't looking at this stuff, I would be in anxiety. And I feel from your perspective, you talk about the future stuff. You talk about what's coming. How important do you feel it is for us to use astrology as a solid tool in the creation of a new world or a new future that we could develop? What do you think the kind of role that would play for us?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful tool, because it enables you, well, first of all, the bigger picture. For instance, just to pick up on what you were saying there, Nat, the ground is uncertain. If you look at the slow moving planets right now, Pluto, which takes 20 to 30 years roughly to move through a sign, whenever it moves through the sign, it brings up the shadow side of that sign and basically uproots it, brings all the corruption to the fore. So at the moment it's trekking through Capricorn, has been since 2008. And Capricorn is governments, institutions, corporations, top-down authority, people who have the power to tell you what to do. So what Pluto is doing is uprooting and bringing to light dodgy stuff, particularly financial stuff, sexual stuff. It's saying the people in power who are having power over you, let's just look at the corruption. So that's what's coming to the fore, and it is meant to do that, and that's very destabilizing in itself. So that's Pluto and Capricorn playing one role. Capricorn is also an earth sign, so it's what has given us kind of long-term structure and stability in our lives. Then we look at Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is also very slow moving, spends 7 years in every sign. Taurus is our stability, our keeping things as they are, our safety systems, our food, our agricultural systems, our banking, our finances, all of those things that help us to feel secure. Uranus, planet of earthquakes and revolution, is moving through that sign. So you've got these two massive slow-moving outer planets in very steady, long-term, lifetime of structure signs, Taurus and Capricorn, that are just blowing it all to bits.
Yeah.
So from the astrology, although it's never comfortable to live on a demolition site, we are meant to be on a demolition site. That's one layer of the benefit of astrology. We are meant to be going through the demolition, and boy, are we seeing it day to day.
Yeah.
Some of us are seeing it more than others if we like going down rabbit holes, but there is a lot of demolition. There's a lot of demolition to come in the next 3 years. There's a lot of demolition to come this year, really starting any minute. March, April, May, June, huge months of change.
Yeah.
And it's going to be about disclosure, truths coming to light that are going to be absolutely head spinning for people. But it's part of the revelation of, how do we feel about this coming to light if these people are our elected servants? It's that kind of thing. So getting back to your question, I think firstly, astrology can give us that, it's meant to be happening. It's not fun, it's not comfortable, but this is what's meant to be happening. So it's reassuring from that point of view. But then going forwards, we can start to use the energy strategically. And what is the energy saying to us? Well, the energy is saying a lot about Aquarius energy, which is ruled by Uranus. So first of all, just on the financial side, I know nothing about cryptocurrencies. You'll know a great deal more than me. But it's saying that digitization, Uranus, is going to enter in a major way our banking and finance, Taurus. The guy who is probably one of the world's best financial astrologers is a man called Ray Merriman. His website is www.mmaapple.cycles.com, and he's recently started to get into cryptos. But he looks at stock markets, he looks at currencies, he looks at commodities, soybeans, corn, beef. He correlates everything with astrology, with astrological cycles. He is a genius, and he basically writes a book a year forecasting the next year.
Oh wow.
He is brilliant, and he has free newsletter every week. It's in kind of astro language. He's a real genius, and actually even lay people can roughly follow what he's saying in those free newsletters. So that's going to be happening, and indeed, I think we could get to the stage we're going to go through a lot of digitization with money, but I think we could even get to a stage where money may not exist, where we don't need money. We're going to be sharing skills.
Yeah.
And in a much bigger way, we are going through the biggest evolutionary shift that humanity has ever known. And we're in it. We're just entering it. So it is massively turbulent. I believe the last time this happened, but it got messed up, was Atlantis. And it got messed up, as I understand it, because they were trying to produce superhuman beings in artificial ways. I'm going to be very careful how I use my language, okay? In artificial ways. And what it did was lower the frequency of the beings at that time. And then the civilization crashed, and the rest is history. This is our next chance. But what is helping us enormously right now is all this photonic light, because our whole solar system is moving through this very unusual area of space called the photon belt. And you can see that very white light out there. That's photonic light. It's very high frequency. It's changing every cell in our body. It's upgrading our DNA in every moment. That's why people are having weird symptoms, can't sleep, nausea, dizziness, headache, all those physical changes are evidence of what's happening to us. We are literally physically being upgraded. Yeah. So that's very, although that's uncomfortable, it gives you proof, that you're going through it. And it's very turbulent, because if we just look at the physics of it, you've got this very high frequency light pouring in, hitting the density of this low frequency light. Well, it's barely light, low frequency, which we've lived with. And ultimately it will dissolve that. Not in a moment. It will take, quite a few months, maybe 3 years, but it will ultimately dissolve that, because two different levels of frequency, according to physics, cannot exist in the same space. So, but there's a turbulence because of all those two different frequencies happening at the same time. And so there's a whole fork in the road, which is a massive fork in the road in terms of, okay, where do you put your focus? Do you put your focus on the drama? Tons of news out there. It's always different, always colorful, it's always exciting, always scary. Do you put your focus there because that's the world we've known? Or can you be brave enough, like the fool in the tarot, to step off the cliff and say, I'm going to trust the invisible. I'm going to turn my focus away from that, trust the invisible, and I'm going to create from a blank canvas the life I want. And what's remarkable is in the last week, I've talked to 4 different people, several of whom are friends, who are literally grassroots up, decentralization, grassroots up, this is all Aquarius, getting together to form communities to go off grid, grow their own vegetables, get out of the matrix. And it's happening right now. And synchronicities are coming into them to provide them, you know, those farms or land or spaces where they can start to create that. And there's a real momentum to do that. So that's one of the big shifts, you know, community, collaboration, grassroots, are people of like mind getting together. But the other shifts, I mean, tell me if you want me to stop at that point.
No, I've got some things I've written down, but I can come back to them. So continue. By the way, if you do have, I don't know if you've got your emails keep coming through and I can hear them slightly in the background. I don't know if they're coming up for anybody who's listening at home.
Oh, I turned off the notifications.
Odd. I don't know whether that's, yeah, it's not mine. But anyway, carry on.
Anyway, I'll talk loudly so people won't know. So I think we are going to, we absolutely are shifting into higher abilities. Those abilities are going to be empathy, greater compassion, telepathy. We're going to be able to scan each other's energy, so we won't need to speak or have a conversation. We can just, you know, communicate energetically. We are going to become more wave and less particle. We are going to eat more lightly. We're going to take our energy from the sun in a bigger way, a bit like breatharians do. We're going to be if we do eat food, it's going to be much more plant-based and raw-based as well. But there's a whole new level of information coming in as we step into being galactic citizens, either for the first time or for a very, 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 very long time. It's going to enable us to step into a totally different world where, you know, our past is going to seem like just minuscule and so kind of tiny and contracted. And that's imminent. That's happening right now. I mean, so many people are channeling galactic beings that I know just every day. That's good enough.
And not me personally channeling, but I'm saying in terms of the people that I speak to, there's a lot of activity. I'm clairsentient, so mine's more a feeling. I'm not audient or visionary, other than, you know, I don't see many things. I have been seeing a little bit more lately, but I was told when I had a reading by one of my other guests, Jonathan Halstead, who's amazing. If anybody wants to look at my previous videos, he actually said you're going to start seeing things. And in one day, I saw 7 rainbows in one day on a journey I was going from Cornwall to Devon. And I was just like, and then I got to Devon. I was on the moor, Dartmoor, near where I lived, and I met a guy that we were chatting to, and 2 people that he knew were walking down the street, and just above this woman's head, there was literally this rainbow pattern going around her head and around her body. And I was like, oh, I'm starting to see things. Okay. And it was it's like the whole rainbow thing, but it was the day after, it was like a week after the events when we did the 21st of December.
Yeah, very powerful.
It was a really interesting time. So just to unpack some of the things that you were saying there, I love everything that you're saying. And I know something we said before you came on air and you said very particularly is astrology is a language. It is not, you know, the way some astrologers talk, I'm like, oh, I've got no idea what you've just said, but I feel like I should know. Like I feel like there's something, I'm learning something on an inner level, but the comprehension of the nodes and the planets and all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of blank out, but I still feel committed to it in some way, even though I don't understand it. And, you know, there's a personal astrology and there's a global astrology. And what I feel at the moment is, personally, I was guided to looking more into sovereignty, into natural law, not common law, but natural law. And that's a different governance system. It's not about us having a common law system and going to courts. It's about us working with one another and creating remedy before it even gets to the stage of a court. It's about us holding truth and integrity in our decisions, in our processes, and our community connecting before we even really have to take it, you know, beyond to other people. It's like we should never really get to the point where we have to take it to a group of people to help us find remedy. If we're coming from integrity and we're coming from that place of truth, we would know, if we have the empathy for the other person and we have the language and we have the ability to be able to listen, not just talk, then we would be able to solve those problems very quickly. But right now we've handed our power over to, the government, the people at large, thinking that, we need somebody else to help us sort our problems out. And that has created a large amount of a lack of personal responsibility. And I recently changed what I'm doing. I've got personal responsibility coaching, which is what I've done with my clients, but now I've changed it to integrity coach. And what I mean by that is integrity is, I used to focus a lot on admin. People say, oh, I want the world to change. I want to live in a community. I want to save the world. And I'm like, how's your email box looking? How's your WhatsApp's looking? How are you going on with that personal bit first? And not many people are there. And this is the fear that I think a lot of people will listen to someone like yourself and they'll be like, oh my God, yeah, this sounds amazing. And they'll want everything you're talking about. But there's a part where they have to drag their bums to get there. And we're not willing to look at the stuff that's being ripped up for us right now. And it's this integrity on a different level. It's this level of authority within ourselves and governance that we've never explored before. We've never had that opportunity. And I think it's even more oppressed because of what's happening with the vaccines and with, limits on stuff. So we feel even more trapped, like we have even less power. But from that, I think we can come out and be something magical, which is what you say, when I've noticed that I'm working within myself and my own governance system and I'm setting my own law, I walk around and I don't have confrontations with people like I used to. I'm not even metaphysically attracting that in. And if there is anything, it's solved very quickly and I'm very clear. And I'm not clear because I'm right and they're wrong. I'm clear because I understand it. And because I'm allowing myself to go into the talkwards, which is, the awkward conversation. But there's a number of things with the Atlanteans. What you said is, right now, I think there's a lot of projects on the planet going on that many people don't know about. If you're in the conspiracy world, you probably have, heard about a few, but I think that there's a destabilizing period that we're going through, that astrology could be the solution for a lot of people to find trust in. And because I think there's a lot of evidence out there for things now, but I think astrology has got this place now where it's going to gain much more attraction, much more respect. I think it's coming into business way more now than it ever has been. I know a lot of CEOs, they're making sure they're clearing their diaries, they're having astrology readings, they're doing, like building communities. Where's best to do that? If I look at my charts or I look at my stars and I want to see where I'm meant to live and whether that's going to work for me. So all of these decisions can be made from a place of trust in a system that we have really taken very lightly before, or we've almost taken the piss out of it really and just put it to one side and been like, oh, it's hoo-ha, where actually now it's central, it's integral to the growth of our community. Is when do we grow our seeds? When do we put our seeds in the ground? What does it say in the stars? How can we bring that in with what we're doing? So there's so many parts. I mean, you've obviously a very busy lady and you've got loads of clients and lots of things, but if you weren't as busy with individual clients, shall we say, what kind of role do you think you would like to play personally in society in terms of being able to kind of use the knowledge that you have to take something forward? What would be idealistic for you? What would be the ideal world you'd like to play a role in?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question, because what I'm getting very excited about now, and I've referred to it in several videos over the last few months, what I'm getting very excited about, in the last 20 years, there have been some discoveries of what are called Kuiper belt objects, Kuiper. It's a rocky belt, really beyond the orbits of Neptune and Pluto. And these objects, some of them have been called dwarf planets, given a denomination of dwarf planets. Some of them are just KBOs. But this represents, I believe, the next jump in the next episode in astrology, but the next it reflects the next evolution in our consciousness. And they're very fine energy. When you look at the archetypes, they're super fine energy, but all of them are linked to creator gods or goddesses. Most of them that I've looked at have a very close, almost shamanic, instinctive connection to the earth. You know, if I look at Homer, who's linked to the fertility goddess in Hawaii, and in myth, she was able to just birth babies from all over her body. It doesn't have to be her womb, you know, her legs or arms, just birth. And she could regenerate herself from being an old crone to a young maiden, which is really kind of handy skill, isn't it? So she's got this regenerative capacity that even in myth, even though the land was laid waste because of poor agricultural practices, through her magic stick, the Macal, she was able just to summon beautiful food from the land and fresh seafood. She could always produce food magically because she could regenerate the earth, because she had the instinctive shamanic understanding. So although we're going goosebumpy now, although we're advancing to the kind of far edge of space in our galactic journey, in another way, I think we're going to connect back to the land in an ancient way, a really ancient communication type way that the indigenous tribes understand very well. You know, they still can get medicines from the plants. They know how to douse to get water. I mean, they live in harmony with the land. So for those of us who are breaking away to keep our sovereignty and to live our truth, we are going to be reaching out there, but also down here and reconnecting back to the earth. And I think falling in love with the earth all over again and loving the earth, which we certainly haven't in many hundreds of years, loving the earth back to health is going to be a very big part of how we go forward. So very long answer. So the shorter answer to your question, Nat, is I see my role more as increasingly as a sort of educator and teacher and speaker, but really investigating those KBOs, because they are, you know, one of them is called Kwawa, and Kwawa, Quaoar. The myth for Kwawa was that they understood, the indigenous tribes living around the LA basin in America, they understood, a bit like the Aborigines actually, that you can, if you sing and dance, you produce a very high vibration and you manifest your reality at a much higher level. So you're not manifesting from this kind of 3D pushing effort, scrabbling level. You're pitching it high with your frequency and much more easily manifesting something magnificent on that high.
Because we're bringing ourselves, I guess, when we sing and we dance, we bring our level, our vibration up quite high in order to, I guess, be able to meet that kind of resonance that's coming in.
Totally. And that is by far the most efficient way to manifest, because you're doing it in a quantum way. You're doing it in a frequency match way, not a push effort way. Yeah. And so I want to have time and research those, because very few astrologers are exploring them right now. And it's so exciting. I mean, I get really excited when I talk about them and think about them, because I want to go beyond what has been up to now my kind of bread and butter planets and get to something because all of them are based on quantum principles. All of them are based on this kind of, you get the right frequency, you set the right intention, bingo, it happens. And that's the world we're moving into.
So what would you reckon, I don't know if you've heard of it, I know in the kind of alternative realms, a number of people have been talking about this quantum energy, or what's it called, the quantum financial system that was meant to be something to be brought through with the likes of Trump and that kind of presidential arena, without going into any kind of two conspiracy angles. What would be your thoughts on that from the quantum level with what you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't understand it at all. To be honest, I don't know enough about it and I don't understand it at all. The little I do understand is that it's going to replace the old SWIFT system. I understand that it's imminent, and I understand that it may have been some test of it that caused the outage in the Federal Reserve about a week ago when they had trillions of dollars, you know, all backed up in payments. And from what I understand, it will mean that it's not possible to have fraud or anything like that, because everything will be very transparent. And in a way that I don't yet understand, it will produce more equality in our system, because we have massive inequality in people's wealth. And one of the things that Aquarius energy does is help to make things not more equal but more equitable. So there is less inequality in society, and that's going to be very true in wealth. And so,
sorry. I was just going to say, we look at it, there are some dark things happening on the planet, regardless of which way you look at stuff. There's things that, whether it's on a personal or a global level, there's some dark things taking place. From a kind of astrology level, do you feel like it's kind of outside influence, or is it a result of what we as humans have allowed to develop on this planet? Is it a result of our inaction up to now, or would you say that there's been alter or outside kind of influence, or maybe a mix of both?
It's a little bit of a mix of both. I think certainly the collective has produced this.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, I think there are people in high places who have a lot of knowledge, who've benefited from our lethargy, lack of attention, whatever. So collectively, we've all produced that, which is why we have to say, okay, I now understand the game. I've clocked that now. So we're going to do it differently. And many of us have decided to do that. So I think what's important is to understand that the light is shining in dark corners. Mm-hmm. And we have to look in those dark corners, because if we just say, oh, no, we're going to look at that, then that's a kind of spiritual bypassing. I think we have to understand what's actually happening, what the other big plan is for the world. Mm-hmm. But yet, even knowing that, you're still able to keep your frequency high, because that's your mastery. Mm. So we can't miss that bit out, but you almost have to say, okay, I understand all that murky stuff. I've integrated it. And now I'm going to choose differently. Now I'm going to put my focus elsewhere. So I'm going to stay on my eagle's perch, never watch the mainstream news ever, 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 because I'm going to create what I want in my life. And that's what I was, I endlessly talk about in the videos. But what I encourage people to do is to focus on what they love. A tree, a bird, their child, their dog, anything that gives them joy, and milk it, because then you're saying to the universe, I want more of you. I want more beauty. I want more love. I want more laughter. Bring it on. Those are my ingredients, my cook's ingredients for a better world. Yeah. So my total focus. So I don't look back. Now I know all the murky stuff. I don't look back because I know that now. I don't have to keep checking on it. I'm going to use all of my energy now to go forwards and have an amazing palette to create my new world, which is currently invisible. It's all going to be based on frequency.
That's the bit with the invisible, because I think a lot of people have lost their ability to vision and to think forward at the moment, because it does look bleak. We can't take that away. It doesn't look like we're going to have the rosiest future. But, for me personally, I've been on my path since 2009, and I've had many information download, channeling, whatever you want to call it, coming through, positioning me and showing synchronicities in my life that prove to me that even if I can't see my next step, something magical's going down, because the synchronicity is there, the guidance is there, that kind of extra help, even though I can't see it, the invisible hand that is at play within my life that, uplifts me, makes me feel more positive, makes me feel, it's not a hidden hand, because I think it's quite a dark term, but the invisible, this assistance that I get really does help me. But it's allowed me to kind of step back and go, I don't plan anything now. I don't want to plan, because when I plan, it's like God's got a better one. Whenever I plan, things just go wrong.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, now get out of your own way. And since I've done that, all these amazing things have shown up for me. And I've got the TV station, I've got the radio station, but I haven't ever told you my date of birth or anything, but I'm a triple Gemini. So all of mine, all of mine is full on, communication. And it's this transparency, it's this communication, it's the articulation. And I've developed myself because I didn't have a plan for myself. Does that make sense? I've kind of come through into that space.
Totally.
And it's really helpful for me to have got out of my own way. And right now I had to, get out of my own way, get out of the drama, get out of the conspiracy theories, get out. What is it I actually feel goosebumps from? What is it that makes me go, yes, it happened, even though I hated finance and maths and money for a long time because I had my head in the sand like an ostrich. I now get goosebumps when I talk and think about money. And it's not because I'm looking from a greed perspective, but I understand the wealth. I understand the logic and the magic around it and the metaphysical uses that it has. When you're feeling abundant, it brings in more than money. So now I've gone into looking at, Forex trading and crypto, and I'm enjoying myself in a space I never would have thought I would have been interested in, like remotely interested.
I mean, Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And in fact, it's so interesting. As you say, God's always got a better plan if we can get out of our own way. And it's very interesting. I've just spoken to 2 friends over the weekend who are both keen to set up communities. And because they've just kind of set the intention, released it to the universe for both of them, they're suddenly meeting the right people, finding the right farm to buy. Somebody can organize the project. Somebody's got the finance. Just clickety click, almost every day, things are just falling into place for them because they've just... It's so much easier if you let the universe do the work. So much easier. Set the intention.
People always talk about letting go, don't they? And that's the bit where people always say, let go, let go. And I'm like, it's not about letting go. When you think of letting go, you think if you're going to lose something, it's going to hurt, there's going to be sorrow. Surrender. Better word, much different. But there's a difference between letting go and surrendering. And when you surrender, you have like this trust that something better is coming. When you let go, it's like, oh, I've let go. I don't want to let go. It's horrible, So for me, it was just a switch on what that meant and surrendering and allowing that, and it is not allowing, not letting it go. It's the allowing whatever's here right now is meant to be here. So this is what I look at with, the current state of the world is it does look terrible. It looks awful. But also, if you're willing to look a little bit further than your kind of slice of the pie, if you're willing to go a little bit further, there's explanations for why it's like it is. So there's a learning, there's an understanding, there's a growth, there's an expansion. But if you're still waiting for, Celebrity Come Dine With Me or whatever it is, or Love Island to come back on, and that's your world, that's what you're going to see. That's as far as it's going to grow, but that's not coming back. That stuff that we once had is not coming back. If anybody's watching, I'm sorry. I don't want to be the person that triggers you today, but if I am, then
totally.
So, go on, carry on.
Well, it's interesting, with Uranus in Taurus, Uranus always wants to, they're very uncomfortable bedfellows because Uranus always wants to shake up what is stale and routine and deadening. But Taurus wants to hang on to what has always been. I want to keep safe. I want to hunker down. Let's just keep everything steady. Don't rock the boat. And Uranus is saying, are you kidding? I'm throwing hand grenades into this. So it's either that you choose to shake up your own reality and be open to change, or my goodness, the world will shake it up for you wherever Taurus sits in your chart. By the way, as a triple Gemini, you should be having a great year because the North Node, transiting North Node, is moving through Gemini right now. So it should be
so bad when I say this, but I'm having the best year so far of my life.
Not surprised. It's wonderful.
For anybody else that is going through this, it's just, for me, there's a understanding my sovereignty, a language, there's a deepening. I'm doing more with sound, with business, but I not suffered, but I've always had so much great vision. And what I mean is great, not that it's going to be great, but hopefully it will be. But in terms of great, I mean large. And I have this vision, but I could never bring stuff in. It was like I was being held back, and it was like, no, you are not going anywhere. And I'm like, but I can solve this and this and this, and I've got all the ideas, and I know what we can do in society, and da, 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 da. And it was so heavy, and I felt so much like anger, but I wasn't able to fulfill the role that I felt I was born to do. And since this happened with in March last year, it's like somebody just went, now she can go, and I'm and I'm in the race, and I'm learning more than ever, and everything is going, and I don't have to do anything. People go, you must be busy all the time. I'm like, no, I'm just at home. I'm doing things, and I'm leaving space in my diary, so I'm not going to be able to talk to you, but I'm not doing anything. And it's not because I don't like you. It's because I know that I'm being prepared to do something bigger. So I'm giving myself that space, and it's so far so good. I've got the TV station happening. I've got the radio. I've got the team that I've always wanted that never left me after lockdown, which I'm so grateful for. And I've got all the things that I need because I know that the vision's already there. So I needed people to help me because it's not my vision as in like it's for me and it's only me. It's a vision that's come through me, but God, I need a team. So they're coming. And it's so difficult because micromanaging, I used to love micromanaging. And I can't do that anymore. So it's been really difficult for me to actually step back and not try and control. Because little Miss Bossy Boots wanted to, this goes here, this goes here. It's like, nah, shut up. Shut up, get out of the way and let it go. And that has been such a learning for me. But now I see that that's what we all need to do, is to allow that greater version of ourselves step in, step up and say, hey, this is a bit of a weird environment. What do I need to do today? Okay, cool. And get on with it, because our control, our wishing that it is like it used to be, is not going
Yes,
to get
it's a done deal. It's gone. It's a done deal. It'll never be like that again. It's so interesting because when you've got transiting North Node moving over, Sun, Moon, Ascendant, there's a sense of mission, sense of purpose. I know I'm on the right track for my solar path of growth in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's a fabulous time. So, I'm not surprised it's been an amazing year for you.
Yeah,
Even
and
though I know, people are struggling out there.
Yeah, health-wise as well, I feel like, I keep explaining about on this show, it's like, when you look at Aladdin, and the rug's got a life of its own, the carpet. This is what's happened. This is how I explain, 2020 and beyond, is that rug has got a life of its own and it's left, and all the stuff that you were pushing under your own rug is now out for you to deal with, and it's here for you to see, and it's here for you to sweep up, tidy up, and put away. And this spring, I feel like there's a real kind of healthy vibe coming that people are feeling. It's the early mornings, the nice nights. It's this overwhelming feeling that there's a possibility that things could be okay. And the thing that I am slightly worried about when I think about it is that, yes, there's the country's opening up in April. Yes, there's this possibility of a brighter day. Yes, we can probably get out more, but we haven't yet felt the financial fall of what's happened with the crash. We felt the emotional fallout, and there's been death, and there's been tragedy, and there's been business closing, but we are no way even within 5% of the very realization of the crash financially as what we have been. And that's also what's coming. Have you got any kind of understanding around that?
Yes, I mean, all this year and into next, we've got a whole series of repeating square. It's a square between Saturn and Uranus. And if I look back historically, they have always correlated with times of economic crash, like 2008 is a great example. We had a hard aspect between Saturn and Uranus. Then I think it was an opposition. And so because Uranus wants to shake up capitalism, which is Saturn, again, it wants to throw hand grenades at it. So yeah, I think it's going to be wildly volatile this year economically. There are going to be peaks and troughs all the way through. And although it's really just unspeakably tough for people who've lost their businesses that they've worked all their lives for. I mean, people write to me all day long about this. It's just, I can't imagine how hard it is. But it's almost that we're all being asked, if we're not already self-employed, to reinvent ourselves with, okay, what now works in this current world? What's an online company? What's a local delivery company? Can I reinvent my business so I can deliver it locally? What is working in this current society that even if there's another lockdown, it can still work? So it's that kind of, and therefore people are being kind of reborn in a different way. And it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of creativity. But again, if you're willing to surrender to the universe and just say that you are going to create something that is abundant and beautiful, that you're going to help humanity with, again, humanity, Aquarius energy, then something will come back to match that.
Yeah, it's what you're putting out, you're getting in. It's interesting because one of the comments that we've got, somebody said, I think it will be a massive leveling down, inequality, rather than a leveling up. And it's a really interesting perspective because, I've got many friends. Some have been as skint as I've been for the last few years, and we can do skint well. We keep joking and we're like, we can do skint. If we have to be skint for the next, we're all right with that. We can live in that space. But it's people that have a large amount of wealth, and it's also people that are in the middle bracket that have savings that could disappear overnight with the financial crash, that would put everyone on this level. And a lot of investors, even some of the investors I know, are moving out of gold, which has been a solid commodity for so long. They're moving out of gold and realizing that it doesn't perform anywhere near as well as your Bitcoins and your cryptocurrencies, because you can't move it around. It's not as easy to move with. And there's all these financial changes that even our solid investors are now having to make different plans. We're having to adopt and adapt. And it's, where's your gold and your silver going to get you? If nobody's interested in it, because we've all formed a community over here, but you've got money, but our community doesn't use it. Our community is not interested in that. Thanks very much. Are you a nice person? Great. You can join us. If not, do one. It's like, your personality is what's going to be your commodity moving forward. And that, I think, is what's going to be really tricky for people, is because a lot of people have chosen not to live in community, and we've also been, on our phones and adapted to our technology lives. But now I always think about it with the farmer. Is the farmer going to feed the person that's, didn't let him out when the tractor was there? Is it the farmer that's going to feed the people that he likes to say hello to, that he has a conversation with? Because we hardly speak to each other, and it's that community.
And it's very interesting what you're saying, that, because again, if I go back to the astrology, Taurus are that represents our values. And with Uranus in Taurus, there's a revolution in our values. So, 2 years ago, we might have been buying fabulous ball gowns and going off to Henley and stilettos and gorgeous things, not that I was in that set anyway, but, beautiful, extravagant, that we were buying stuff. Who's buying stuff now? There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So, what we're more interested in is growing vegetables in our own garden or joining a local neighborhood community who are doing that. So it's back to the land. There's a huge split here between people who are happy to follow a much more, let me say, and I'm being careful here, technological agenda, and other people who are saying, no, I want to go back to Taurus. I want to grow organic food biodynamically. I want to go back to the land. I want to go back to the earth and what really, really matters. And that, I would say, is on the higher timeline. And it isn't to say that there isn't going to be beneficial technology, because I do think there is. In fact, things like med beds already exist. There's one in London, apparently. Already, and these are light capsules that were developed with off-planet help, with galactic help. It's Palladian technology, and it can cure anything, leukemia, cancers in minutes. It can reverse your aging. Incredible benefits of this technology. So there's going to be beneficial technology. So technology, Uranus, Taurus, the physical body, that will help us, but we have to be extremely discriminating, North Node in Gemini, about what is actually coming into our world. And is this beneficial, or is it a kind of very much a look-alike that isn't actually going to help us long term?
And it's hard. I think it's, 2007, 2008, we had a depression, a global recession. In 1929, we had this depression. What my friend Patrick has said to me a few times is, we're not moving into a recession or a depression. It's the biggest shift in financial, movements we've ever had. It could well be a global dislocation of finance in every country around the world. What does that mean for people? It's a completely different level of understanding. It's a different place for us to go into. But in the meantime of that happening, there's going to be some form of, nobody's got anything, let's put something together and let's get you all onto this great reset system. Let's get you all onto, we'll help you, we'll provide you with a regular monthly income, and that will keep you stable through these economic times that no one knew was coming, by the way, even though they kind of planned for it. But it's like, they put this out there, like, we need to be in this global reset, and they're going to push that agenda saying that it's a sustainability measure for the planet. But actually, in order to be able to get your finance and to be able to come into that world, you will need to have had a vaccine, otherwise they won't pay you. You will need to have followed the measures that they set, otherwise they won't pay you. There will be an app like there is in China that measures where you go and what you do. And it's that level of healthy position technology that they're going to say is healthy, it's organized, it's clean, it's legit, it's there, is also, in a very short space and time, it's going to show how limiting that really is. And it's not a solution that we really should be moving forward for. It's not something we should be moving towards, because that level of control on that, for each individual, initially it's going to look like freedom. Initially it's going to say, oh my God, we're in this space right now and I need help. Yeah, let me go for that and let me sign up for that. But what you actually do is you take the gratification, and you give away your sovereignty. And that is a very risky place for us to go into. And I don't believe that we're going to see the kind of back of that system until around 2024. Because if you look at finance, it's the same as and this is why I laugh when I think about it. People talk about conspiracies and they say, oh, conspiracy theory is all rubbish. And I'm like, well, look at finance. It's going in the same direction. If you look at the world on a financial trajectory, everyone's, investing, buying seeds, moving their gold into Bitcoin, and they're hunkering down and buying guns. That's exactly the same as what people have been talking about in the conspiracy world. So it's like they're going in the same direction, but this false illusion of support for the economy is something that I feel that does worry me.
Totally, and it should. And I posted on my Facebook page just this week. It would be really helpful if people don't know what you're talking about to look at. It's very easy to find YouTube videos on the Chinese social credit system. And as Nat, you will know, everything, your entire life is controlled via your mobile phone, because every week you get a social credit score. If you've done well at work and if you've stayed late and done overtime and helped a neighbor, you get additional points on your social credit score. If you were late for work, if you went through a red light, etc., you get points deducted. And eventually, if you get a lot of points deducted, you won't be able to leave your flat to buy food or take a bus or anything. And because everything is checked via the phone, your mobile phone controls your life. That is why I never, ever, ever take my phone with me when I go out, and I haven't switched it on for about 2 months, I think. It's very I'm a happy Luddite. It's a very deliberate policy, because I'm so aware of what's happening in China. Because it's so easy to see, as you've just very eloquently described, what's coming down the track, because it will have the perception of freedom. Uranus, Aquarius, it looks free, but actually it can end up like Saturn in Aquarius, controlled by technology. And once you're in that loop, it's very, very difficult, I would say, to get out of it. So, I could chuck my phone in the bin and I'd be very happy. I mean, I refuse to let that control my life. So, I'm making very conscious efforts to do what I love, be in nature, grow vegetables, go back to the earth, because I can trust the earth. I can trust nature. I don't know at all where that, I do know, actually. I don't know very well where that agenda is headed, which is why I'm saying, do you know what? I think I'll just take this other path.
Yeah, and it's true. You've got a choice in every moment. We have a choice, and this is the thing that we forget. We think that this is one path, and it's, oh my God, what's going to happen? I don't want to go down that path. And it's like, well, make the decisions that allow you not to take that path. And this is the issue. Is I said it very closely. Just probably last question before we finish. I said to my friend the other day, they were saying, oh look, we're going to be able to go out again in April. The country's going to lift the ban, and I said, look, from where I'm sitting, there will be a lift of this virus. There will be some reprieve. There'll be some time where we can go out, and it's been forecasted that we'll be able to do that around April time. There will be this flood of us back out there, and it will be sunny and it will be shining and it will feel like a brand new day, and we will want that more than ever. But because we're all out and we're all spending again, we're all in the shops again, we're all in the restaurants again, in the bars again, that circulation of wealth, the velocity of wealth that's going around the economy at that time will increase inflation very, very quickly. And we'll soon start to see where this crash has led us to, because the rate of inflation will skyrocket. And when you're paying £2 now for a loaf of bread, it might be £10. How far is your money going to get you? So it's so many people are wanting to spend or get out or book holidays, and I'm like, save. I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you what to do with your money, but save it, learn, invest, understand crypto, understand what you can, because it's this false illusion, like almost a crack of dawn in April that I feel is coming. And then there's a period where afterwards, very quickly, we're going to be back into a space. So is there anything around within the astrology? I know obviously everything seems a little bit topsy-turvy at the moment, but is there anything to kind of indicate that kind of in April, and then something a little bit darker down the road in terms of finances? Does that project anyway?
I think there's going to be huge turbulence. Is that the difficulty with Uranus? I mean, Uranus is in Taurus, as I say, finance, banking, etc., and it does represent cryptocurrencies because it's digital money. The problem with Uranus is it's the planet of the unexpected. It's the planet of surprises. So whatever you think it's going to be, it won't be that. You can guarantee it won't be that, or it won't be them, because there's always a rug pull. But it's going to be a wild ride. I will certainly say that it's going to be volatile. It's going to be a wild ride. I'd say if you've got enough funds, diversify funds. But what is most important is a network of connections. Your neighbors, your friends, your community, getting together, sharing skills, all growing different veggies, sharing, it's having the real human network connections that is going to be the most important thing to see you through this. And yes, diversify. yes, I don't understand cryptos myself, but if you do, that would be a great thing to invest in. One of the best things, I think. But everything will be volatile. Stock markets, crypto, everything. And that's why it's going to be very, very hard to second guess. I think you're absolutely right about inflation. Totally. And I can see us going into, because partly the virus is supposed to be seasonal, I can see us going into the autumn and, here we go again. Here we go again. Yeah. And actually, our immune systems have got hundreds of thousands of viruses in them. And the way we grow our immunity is in adapting to those viruses through history. That's what we do as human beings, and we're super intelligent in our physical systems in doing that. And so I'm going to trust my God-given immunity, I think, and see where it gets me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's a good positive place to end on. And I just, conspiracies and all that kind of stuff aside, we know that vitamin C, we know that improving our immune system is going to help us overall. It's when we know that, but we still don't do anything about it. We can't blame the government saying it's the vaccine that's the problem. It's our knowledge that we are, we're getting that we need to use. It's that having that responsibility and that integrity with it to be able to bring in the discipline that's going to help us move past this. So we have done just almost, I feel like I could talk to you forever. I love it. But we have done almost an hour. Obviously, you stay where you are, everybody else at home. Thank you so much. I've got one more question before we go. Somebody did say, why did astrology get such a bad reputation, scientism, in our time? Once it was a very high regard. What was it that happened? If you could explain that in short, maybe was it the Babylonian, the Egyptian, or the South American kind of stuff that happened? What was it?
I'll try and make this as concise as I can. I mean, astrology was basically the subject of the elites, the very educated people. It was the Babylonian priests. It was very much part of educated society. It was part of university curriculi. All through the Middle Ages, every royal court had an astrologer. The papacy had an astrologer. So astrologers were held in very high regard. And it was really two things that happened. One was Copernicus developed his heliocentric theories. And by that, he was saying that it's the sun that's the center of the universe and the earth rotates around it, not the earth as the center of the universe. The Catholic Church were horrified because they thought God's teaching was the earth is the center of the universe. And how dare this astrologer upstart Copernicus dare say anything against the Catholic Church? So the whole subject, astrology along with astronomy, was essentially dismissed at that time. Then along came Isaac Newton, who was a very clever chap, and he developed his new laws of motion, and everything had to be rational and measurable. And because he knew that the planets were too far away, apart from the moon having a gravitational pull on the tides, he knew that the other planets were too far away to have any measurable effect. So if it couldn't be measured and it wasn't rational, poof, it was superstition. Okay. And it was just, kicked to the sidelines of society where it rumbled around in old farmers' almanacs, and superstition and seance readings sort of type of scenario, and it fell dramatically from being a very educated class subject. And I think it's now that it's coming back into respectability, because with computers, we can run millions of charts and get information which becomes very reliable, statistically reliable. And also when we look at global events, mundane events, and again, track those back historically and anticipate what's going to be happening next time around, everybody in the world can start to see it. Last year we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction at the 12th of January 2020, and astrologers knew that was a period of huge contraction, greater control, laws, rules, regulations, austerity, hard time, locking down. We had it in 1933 to 35, that kind of it, but we didn't know what. We won't know the events because we're not working psychically in that way, but we'll know the energy. And hey presto, there we go. We know what happened. The rest is history. So that's how astrology starts to get its respectability, by people like me anticipating things in the world, and then over the coming months, well, here we go. Human rights, freedom, legal issues around those. Just before I came online, sorry, I know we must go, but just
no, it's fine. We haven't actually got to stop, but it's just usually I try to keep them to an hour, but you can just talk and I'll stop you in a second.
Yeah, just sort of one final thing. Just before I came online, there's a court in Germany, a Weimar were public court, and they have just ruled that the lockdown is unconstitutional. So human rights, civil rights, freedoms, and legal and constitutional issues attached to those are going to be really big this year. And legal issues could be one of the ways to change the current trajectory of what we're seeing at the 3D level.
Yeah.
Very big cases happening.
Yeah. And that, I love the fact that you've ended on that, the legal side, because the next kind of show, I've got a show on dreams on Tuesday, which is about asking your dreamer, actually, which is what you put in your latest show today. You said going to bed and asking our dreams for questions. And I'd done that very recently, and it came up with some really interesting stuff. And I was like, oh, but you can ask your dreamer at any time, just before you go to sleep. Ask them a specific question, they will bring you an answer that is more, it's more about the individual things that you remember rather than the story. The story is kind of the imagination going, but there's individual things in your dreams that will bring you answers to questions. So if you haven't already watched Pam's stuff for March, please go ahead. Underneath here, there's also, I put Pam's website under there, but she is not taking on any new clients. So as much as you badger her, it's not going to happen, people. And I'm getting in the queue first anyway. But Pam, before you go, I just want to thank you for your consistency and your discipline in this work. I watch you all the time, and you do such an amazing job. Your YouTube channel is growing all the time. I will do my best to help you as well with my team and getting you some spare time so you don't have to do all the tech stuff. But it's been amazing to have you here on I Am Sound and to kind of just delve into these areas with you, because they're so important. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a real joy. Really enjoyed it, Nat. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. So Pam, you stay there. For everybody else at home, thank you for joining us. Sorry if you heard any beeps or any emails coming through. It's just lockdown life, I'm afraid. We're not perfect. We're never going to be. So you just have to let us off with that one. But we do have the station coming very soon. As I said, it's going to be on Roku, Apple TV, and also Amazon Fire Stick. And this is going to be available on YouTube. And if anybody wants to check out the radio station, you can go to the app in the App Store. So it's I Am Sound. You can get it in the App Store and the Google Play Store. For everyone else, we'll see you on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I have Ben on this channel, Ben Wolf, talking about dreams, and maybe we'll have Pam back at some point if I can clear some space in her diary for it. Bye for now. Pam, just bear with me 1 second. I'll see you on the other side.